Ladies and gentlemen, it's that time of the day where we get to have an informative, amazing conversation with yet another phenomenal individual in the sector as we continue to promote Arbor Month through our virtual campaign called A Tree of Knowledge. And I've been telling you guys, it's exactly that. It's just a platform of so much knowledge and information that I want to make freely available to all of you. So today, please allow me to, even though it's very cold, give a warm welcome to the amazing Rudolf van Jaarsveld, who is the Head of Communications at the Western Cape Department of Environmental Affairs and Development Planning. Rudolf, welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for making time for me in your very busy schedule. And why this session was so important for me is you guys will see next week once we actually start with the official tree planting campaign. I don't know what is Arbor Month without partnering with Western Cape Government. Over the past 2 years, I've been able to develop an amazing relationship with them. So yeah, this is very important for me because I also just wanted to share a bit of our relationship and how we just tend to always make sure that our campaigns are a success. But we are going to jump straight into the hang of things, Rudolph. So my first question would be from Western Cape Provincial's point of view. In terms of provincial policies on environmental protection, what are some of the mechanisms that have been put in place to ensure the implementation of these policies?
So Marga, that's a very good question because everyone's always wondering what government does and why we do it. So the provincial government has a constitutional duty, a mandate, and that is provincial, national, and local to secure an environment that is not harmful to people's health or well-being. And this is stated in the section 24 of the Constitution. So we have a constitutional mandate and it's in that section. Now, onto that is the National Environmental Management Act, which is normally referred to as NEMA by the guys in the industry. And this provides a legal framework for the environmental law enforcement. And this takes us to that mechanisms that we have in place. We have what we call the environmental management inspectors, also known as the green scorpions, which is my preferred term for them. And they look after the environment. So whenever there's issues within the environment, they go out. And the mechanisms that's in place for these environmental inspectors, the green scorpions, is things like compliance notices, directives, high court interdicts. And then failure to comply with these things can give you a penalty up to 10 million rand or 10 years imprisonment. And I think it's really important that these guys are out there doing their duty. Obviously, with the National Environmental Management Act, there's various sections that focus on air quality and waste, etc. So there's a lot of things that's compiled within that section 24 that gives us that technical aspects to do our job better.
Definitely. And then just zooming into some of the greening projects that DEPI, and I'm abbreviating now because it's a very long name, just some of the greening projects that DEPI has implemented within the Western Cape on a communal level.
So this is yet again an interesting question because we do so many projects that has a community focus. Not all of them have a greening aspect to it, but a lot of them have a focus on other things. I think about the Regional Social Economic Project program that we have, or RCEP, that's focusing on the quality of life for previous disadvantaged communities and neighborhoods and how they uplift these through urban and social and spatial upgrading. Then I think about an old project we did with Witsundt Greening Project, where we focus on vegetable gardens within the communities. Not direct linking to our mandate, but it's an extension of what we do. There are numerous others. I'm thinking about the rainwater harvesting that we did at schools. So we provided 15 schools in the province with rainwater tanks to harvest the water. And then I think about the Bateau forestry project that we have. And then one of the big programs we have at the moment is the riparian restoration or rehabilitation program, where we look at the Breede River and the Berg River, and along the area where the invasive alien species have been taken out, we're reintroducing plants that's suitable for the area just to make sure that the ecosystem thrives again after that on a functional level, and that will help the river systems. So we've done quite a few projects on that. Yes, there's more, like the Wastepreneur program, where we look at little individuals within communities that's trying to make a difference, and illegal dumping, for example, which is a big thing within the province, where we have a a big group of people together now, a task team that's looking at this, where we do waste splitters. So there's so much happening within our space, and you can take up a full day, full 2 weeks to chat about the programs that's in there. And it's all to do with partners as well. You mentioned earlier on, we cannot do this alone. It is with the partners that we have, such as yourself, such as national government and local governments. And that is the magic of it all. We can't do it alone. We need everyone's input.
Yeah, and you are literally stealing the words out of my mouth, because I wanted to comment when you closed off this answer to say that besides all the amazing things that you've just mentioned a little bit about, another magical part to that is that you guys leave enough space and room for partnership and collaboration. You guys support so many local and national projects from a provincial point of view and level. And it just always, I mean, for me personally, I mean, some of my projects I've done as a young professional, but also just in my space as a young environmental protection activist. And you know, Western Cape government is that one phone call that I know I can like call Shireen, or I can call Rudolph and say, guys, this is what I want to do. Do you want to help and partner with me? And you always leave, or should I say Western Cape government, truly always leaves room for collaboration and partnership. So just to follow up, in your view, just emphasizing, why is collaboration so important for us to make sure that these projects and campaigns are that sustainable?
What is really important, and you mentioned already, one person alone cannot make a difference. Yes, everyone says one person needs a voice, and we can start with that. Yeah. But the more hands, the lighter the load, as the Afrikaans saying would go, meer hande lig te werk. And I think it's really important that you bring expertise in from all over the place. And I think that's really important. Not just from a government point of view, but from society's point of view, from organizations that have been working in the communities within the various sectors, and it's making a difference. Bringing them on board. So you're not duplicating work, you're not reinventing the wheel. You're making sure that the work that's done on the ground keeps that momentum going. And I think that's why it's important to have these big communities working together. And I'm calling it a community because it's more like a family, extended family, where you, as a provincial department, we can't do everything we do without national departments or without individuals such as yourself or organizations out there. And we need that to make sure that we move forward. And I think that's really important, the whole moving forward, not making any mistakes. We always make mistakes, but taking those mistakes, learning from them, and then moving forward to create a sustainable future for generations to come.
Yeah, and I love celebrating my partners, Rudolph, because I love, you just again stole the words out of my mouth. It's not about restarting the wheel. I always say that I celebrate my partners because I'm not starting something new. There are so many people doing exactly what I do. It's about keeping that wheel turning. And that is where your partners and your sponsors and all the people that contribute their expertise to that campaign plays such an important role. And then moving on to why we are hosting this virtual campaign, it's obviously National Arbor Week, which is very dear to my heart and your guys' heart as well. So just, why is Arbor Week so important, and what are some of the campaigns that you guys done over the years to commemorate National Arbor Week, or Arbor Month as we now call it?
So we can't deny the fact that without trees we won't be here. I mean, we need trees to be here. They play a very important role. And I mean, not only are they pretty, and I think it's really important to note that,
to emphasize the beauty.
The beauty of it, but they also play a very specific role within the ecosystem. And I think it's really important that we do celebrate them. Yeah. And to your second part of the question, the reason why we do this is just to make sure that we keep on sharing that information. We keep on educating. We keep on making sure that people are aware of what we are doing. So some of the projects we did in the past, and I'm thinking specifically of 2019, last year, which feels like forever ago, but it was just last year. We focused on tree planting events within schools across the province, but specifically within the Beaufort-based municipality. Yeah. And yet again, I need to mention partners like yourself, the Western Cape Education Department, the National Department of then Agriculture, and so forth, SAMParks, and the list goes on and on and on. And what we did was we focused on primary schools and the learners in primary schools and created a vegetable garden for them. We taught them about why it's important to plant trees. We did a few tree planting here and there. Yeah. We delivered trees to other places across the province as well. And then what was important about this aspect of last year's program is we ran a workshop for environmental management learners where we taught them the correct way to choose trees to plant in certain areas and how to prepare the ground and what is the correct way of planting it, what is important when you're watering the trees, what is your role going to be moving forward with the tree as well. And then just adding that sustainability element to it, making sure that the community understands it's their responsibility as well. And I think that's the three-pronged approach that government and a lot of people are always doing out there. It's what is my role, what is your role, and what is our combined role? And I think that's really important at this stage, to make sure that people understand it's your role as well to take care of the environment and to plant trees. And I mean, I love planting trees. The amount of trees we've planted over the couple of years, it's nothing compared to what's out there in the industry. But every time you plant a little tree, it's like you're giving a little bit of your soul and you're giving back and you feel great afterwards. So I would recommend planting trees. Make sure that they're indigenous, but then plant trees.
And then also just Rudolph, one aspect that I want to focus a lot on this year is just educating, especially our kids in our communities, just about the terminology of replenishment. I think that when we say that it's Arbor Month, people just think, okay, I'm just planting a tree to make it look beautiful. But also, I think it's so important to educate people to say that, as humanity and as society, we're constantly taking for goods and services and our basic needs, but are we putting back enough? And I love the fact that you guys have included such an important element and aspect to say that it's about planting the correct tree in the correct area, because it can be an indigenous plant, but the way the Karoo is going to react to a coastal area such as the West Coast, it's two complete different things. So there's so much fun in educating, especially our schools and our kids, just about, Arbor Week or Arbor Month in general. And then you touched a bit on education. So my next question would just be, in your opinion, is enough resources being diverted towards environmental education and awareness? And you don't have to get too technical on this one. I know there's a lot of boundaries to this question.
Yes, it's very close to my heart, this question, because I personally, and it's not the views of my department, but personally, I don't think enough is being done. But from a departmental side, we do what we can, but is enough ever enough? And I think that's really important to say, that no amount of education is always enough. We're always growing, we're always learning new things. And I think it's really important. And then something that's really important as well is the allocation of resources towards educational things and awareness. And I think in this day and age, it's really important to allocate it to the right areas. I think we're all looking for funding for projects moving forward, but it's really important to have that educational aspect into your program already. And I think that's one of the programs or the aspects that's really important moving forward, is having where we're putting our funding, making sure that it is towards the right things in the right areas to educate the right people. And I think that's where we also need to consider where our audiences are and how we are interacting with our audiences, because when a natural disaster hits, it's normally the poorest of the poor that's really affected by flooding, by damages by storms, etc. And educating people on why this is happening. And I don't want to go onto the climate change tangent now, but we all know that the climate is changing. But if you educate the people enough, maybe your small contribution that you are making via that education and awareness is contributing to a bigger picture in the long run. So I think it's really important to bring that into it as well. And then, like I said, it's partnering with the right people and educating, like educate, inform, and entertain. And I think those are the key words that people need to focus on when it comes to environmental education.
Yeah, I just have to.
That's a lot.
No, it's good. I love it. I said when I came up with this concept and this idea, and so many people, once I started approaching sponsors and my special guests, I emphasize the objective is just to make information freely available, insight and knowledge for all. And I just need to use this opportunity to tap into your communication side of things and just ask this question. Do you think that the media, and I mean social media, is such a powerful tool in today's life and time and age? Is the media giving enough attention towards environmental issues?
Oh,
That's a
it's a
long
very
one.
difficult question.
Yeah, I know it's a follow-up and I'm
Yes.
a bit diverting from the listed questions, but I think it's also
No,
just
that's
nice to hear
perfect.
your insights.
I think on the environmental front, there's a lot happening within the media space.
Yeah.
But like we said earlier on, is enough, or when is it enough?
Yeah.
And I think more can be done, especially like you mentioned with social media. It's such a big and fast way to share information. Are we using it to the maximum that we can? To what point are we using it where people are going, oh, this is enough, I can't deal with it? There's a lot of studies, and we're not going to go into the technical side of it, saying that how are we using the media in environmental education? How are we creating that awareness? Are we using the right channels? Are we making sure that enough funding is there, for example, for this? Or who are we speaking to? And I think within the South African context, we are so used to a free media where there's so much information, but how are we tapping into it? And I think that's one of the aspects that we need to really take forward. And I think the international market has got the ball rolling on this completely, and they're doing such a good job. And the South Africans are doing such a good job as well. I mean, how do we take people that's on just saw a Facebook post and get them to repost it? And at the end of the day, you had 5 million impressions on this and that issue that you are creating. And I think we are at a point within our society that we are using the media more to give ourselves a voice and giving the voiceless a voice. For example, the forest and the rivers, we are speaking up for them. And I think that's really important. Is the media playing a big enough role? Yes. Can they do more? Yes. Are we happy? Yes. So I think we are in a phase where we can move forward. And I keep on coming back to that because I think for me personally as well, moving forward is such an important word at this stage because you don't want to stagnate. You don't want to just be. You want to be the best. You want to be next. You want to move forward. And that whole point of a sustainable future for the generations to come, I think it's really important. We're not going to get there if we're not moving forward. So it doesn't help with that we practice the same things we've done for 50 years. We need to find innovative ways using what we have to, guess what, move forward. And I'm coming back to the whole time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that's where my thoughts are with the media at this stage.
Definitely. Rudolf, earlier you've mentioned national and local, and we've touched a little bit on collaboration. But how do we effectively ensure the implementation of governmental policies when it comes to the environment, looking at the fact that we have these 3 spheres of government and just making enough room to eliminate fragmentation and just duplication amongst those spheres of government?
That's a really cool question. And I, for a fact, know that there's so much work being done within that space. If I think about the environmental education forums that I sit on, for example, that's from a provincial platform that includes national, and it includes district, local, and it includes NGOs and NPOs and all people that's interested, academics, etc. It all includes them into this little groupie. And they are fundamentally a cross-sectorial group that engages with a wider range of partners.
Yeah.
So like you said, to ensure that we're not duplicating work, we partner with these people and we say, okay, this is the project we are going to move forward. What is your take on it? How are you going to add to this? Or what can you do to add to this program? And I think collaboratively, that is really important. We can't work on our own, and this in the bigger context, it's important to have forums like that. And I think about, for example, like I said, the Western Cape Environmental Education Forum, where a lot of people are doing quite amazing work. And then someone puts up a hand and say, hey, but I can add to this program. Or what about the following? Have you considered this? So it's also a place, a safe space where you can bounce ideas of each other and say, okay, this doesn't work. What can we do moving forward? And then obviously on the national front, there's the National Environmental Education Training Strategy, and that also focuses on the work being done on the ground and how we're going to work together to make sure that we bring through the elements of knowledge, attitude, skills, and all the things that's going to help us to create that sustainable human development that we are so looking forward to.
Yeah, and one thing that I love about the environmental space is that I think initially when the hype sort of started around global warming, climate change, everybody was on this mission to play their part. And it was sort of, it became a bit of a competitive space, if I could say that. But over time, because so many NGOs and spheres of government and individuals are just, practicing collaboration and partnership, we've just over time started eliminating that. I want to work in isolation, but I rather want to work with the people with the same objective in mind and together, because we want to achieve the same thing. I mean, South Africa is one of the countries that has agreed and signed the agreement to say that by 2030, we will achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. And I've been saying it throughout the series. For me personally, from an activist point of view, if anything the pandemic has taught me is that globally we are so far from being ready to say in 2030, hey, I've signed the agreement, I've played my part, this is where we're at. So that is just something that I love about the environmental sector. We have turned that word of competition into collaboration, and that is really so fundamental for us in just doing what you just said, and that's moving forward.
Yes. And just think about it, 2030 is in 10 years' time.
It's around the
How are
corner.
we going to be in 10 years' time? Yeah. And most of the projects that is on the ground at the moment has got that feel to it, that 2030 feel to it.
Yeah.
If you think 10 years ago, you were like, oh, it's 20 years, it's fine, we can
We have
manage. It's now
time.
10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's going to happen in 5 years' time? We're going to go, oh no, it's in 5 years' time. So I think it's really important, like you said, to work together to achieve our goals.
Yeah. And then, Rudolph, moving on to the next point that I want to focus on, environmental projects and campaigns is not always easily accepted by our communities. And, we've visited schools over the years, and sometimes it's a little bit difficult to get the buy-in of that school or that community. So just what is one or two ways that we can just, ensure that these environmental projects and campaigns are approachable enough for our communities and our schools?
And I think you've said it there yourself. The community participation is so important. Without community participation, you're not going to make a project land within the community. And I think one of the first things we need to consider is community participation, but through who is the community? Who are they? What are they doing? What do they want? And I think sometimes we forget to listen to what communities want. We go, yeah, this is what you need. You're going to take this and this project's going to work for you. But that's not actually what the community wants. Yes, we can't always give the communities what they want, but we should take their opinions into consideration. I think so. Public participation processes is so important within government because that's where you get what the community wants to achieve. That's where you get the voice that comes through. And I think it's important. And you said you can't land a project if you don't have that participation approach to it. And I think it's really important because that adds to the success of your project and it makes projects more effective and more efficient. And I think what's really important here is to make sure that the decisions you make today will be for the community and to better the communities, and that you make sure that your project that you are doing there can last. So I think one of the biggest things that you need to consider is what is the sense of beneficiaries within the community? What are they going to get from the project and how can they benefit from it? Because as soon as you tell someone they can benefit from something, they're going to go, oh yes. And then you can educate them and say, but it's your responsibility to do A, B, and C. And they can go, okay, so at the end of the day, I can achieve this. How do I achieve it? This is your responsibility. So then education comes into play. So firstly, get that community buy-in, get the voice from the community, show them what they can achieve by doing the following and what the end results will be for the community. And I think that's basically what we need to do.
Yeah. And then Rudolph, environmental commemoration is something that sort of peaked and then dropped down a bit and then it peaked again. So from a provincial point of view, just is enough being done to ensure that we continue the commemoration of these environmental days of importance?
And I think we come back to that whole point of never enough.
Yeah.
Are we doing enough? Yes, we are doing enough. Are we doing more than we should? In a sense, yes, we are. But I think enough is never enough and we need to continuously do that. So one of the elements that we are considering as well is how we are landing the days, the environmental calendar days. Yes, we are celebrating them, but we are making sure that we invest in the sustainable education programs within those days. For example, Arbor Month. What are we doing to ensure that if we do celebrate it, that on the ground, people are going, okay, thanks for the tree, but I know that I need to take care of the tree, or I know that I need to pick up the waste in the schoolyard. If you look at educational material done on waste management, that it's my responsibility to also help contribute to a better future. And I think that's really important. So are we doing enough? Well, we're celebrating it, but celebration is not always the best way to create that awareness. By educating people on the ground, saying this is what you can do to help, or this is your responsibility, or this is what we are going to do, we need your support. And I think that's really important for me at this stage.
Yeah, and I love how you just put it, because I'm someone that when I speak about environmental days of importance, I never tend to use the word celebrate, because for me, celebration means we are celebrating something good, you know, but for me, it's more of using the word commemoration, because I link it so directly to that education and awareness aspect. Because with every campaign, it's like you said, it's easy to just go plant a tree, but are you planting the right tree in the right space? Do you know how big the hole needs to be? Do you know how to plant that tree correctly? Do you know, or is there someone that's responsible for the long-term care of that tree? And those are such important elements that just contributes, you know, towards leaning more of saying commemoration than celebration. I would love just to end off this session with you, and thank you so much for just giving us some insights, not only into the provincial government's day-to-day, but also just, you know, your point of view. As a young professional, what has it been like for you working in the environmental sector?
Sure, that's a open-ended
We want to
question.
get to know you a bit as well.
So I started with the department in 2012. So I'm still fairly new with the department, if I can say that, although it's almost 10 years.
I was going to say,
So
it's about to be 10 years.
So I started with the department from a higher education background. So I used to work for higher education, and education was always really important to me. That's why I went into the higher education sphere. And then I slowly evolved into this really passionate person about the environment. Not saying that before I started with the department, I didn't care. But the more I learned about it, the more I was like, oh, wow, my little carbon footprint is making a huge impact on the environment. Or from the point that I'm not recycling, sure, that it ends up, my little contribution is making such a big difference in the landfill sites. And I think that's where I am at the moment. I'm really getting to the point where the environment is so important, but also societal needs are important as well. And luckily for me, I work for the Department of Environmental Affairs and Development Planning. So we take into consideration so many aspects. It's two vastly different fields that we are merging together in such a cohesive way that we are making sure that we are looking at creating futures that will be sustainable, that we are making sure that we are looking after the environment. And for me personally, you probably have seen me when I do plant a tree. I'm so happy that I'm making such a small contribution, but
even if
I'm
it's pouring,
making a contribution. Yeah, even if it's pouring with rain,
we've
I'm
had
making
that.
a small contribution.
Yes, no, definitely.
Yeah, no. So I think that's from my point of view. I think it's really and I always say this whenever I educate someone on the environment and I see that little light go up, that little aha moment, I'm like, that's it. Even if it's 1,000 people and there's one person that goes, oh, wow, that's what I'm living for. And I think with everything that's happening in the world, you said we shouldn't always use the word celebrate, but celebrate the little victories that we are making, the little strides that we are moving forward towards that 2030 goals that we have set ourselves, that we've partnered with. And then also just remember that the decisions you make today might not be in your future, but it might be in someone else's future. And in 50 years time, 60 years time, when we're not there anymore, taking our age into consideration, the decisions we make today should have been based on solid foundation, that we know that, yes, they're going to have a sustainable future that's going to make sure that they are happy, the earth is happy. And I think little by little, we're edging away to that. And that is why I do what I do.
I'm in awe, and like I was actually chipping in there. I've seen Rudolph in 2018 actually when we planted. We went out to the George area, the Eden district, and we left Cape Town sunshine. And when we got that side, it was pouring. And Rudolph was literally out there planting trees in the rain while myself and the kids were like trying to take shelter. So I've had the privilege of seeing your enthusiasm and just your passion and love, not only for the education part, but just, you know, the environmental part as well. Rudolph, thank you so much for just making the time to chat with us again. I look forward to 5-10 years down the line when a young graduate or a young academic, you know, says, I do what I do because I saw this video on social media, and I've been telling everybody, I think that's just one of the main objectives of this platform is to look into the future and know that there's going to be that one person that's going to see the interview and be like, I want to do what he does, or I want to do what she does, or from today, I'm making a change to better my carbon footprint, to better my waste footprint. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's been fun. And yeah, I'm hoping that someone will see it and be, yes, we can make a difference together.
Definitely. And I look forward to planting trees with you guys next week.
Yes, that's going to be fun. Looking forward to it.